there's always a good part and a bad part. There's always a light part and a dark part. There's always good and evil. And with each new technological advance happening, really in the last 30 or 40 years or so, we've seen the good parts and we've seen the bad parts. And so, for example, when Facebook was first sort of launched upon us, I think Zuckerberg and the Facebookians were feeling that this would be an opportunity with technology to be able to recreate family, to bring people together, to reconnect with old friends, to share images of how our lives are going, and it was supposed to be a joyful, wonderful experience. And to some of us it is. And I've
Mm.
reconnected with a couple of my friends that I haven't seen in a long while as a result of Facebook. But we've also seen the harm that it can do, and one has to weigh: was it worth through Facebook getting to enjoy all of the things that was promised by it, versus what wrath it has brought to our country, to the world, and to sort of the human condition.
So, to your point, pretty much every technology has that yin yang to it, right? The iPhone, uh, clearly, social media, to your point. I love the one where you walk on State Street here in Santa Barbara and there's four girls out for the evening and they're all on their phone, but they're texting one another and they're standing right next to one another, right? So the promise of connection really turned into this screen that's in between us and the real world.
Yeah, or let's take it a little further, and as we start to talk a bit more about the metaverse, that's where some of my fear is that nowadays, if you look at things like Instagram or TikTok, there are filters and there are ways in which one can present imagery
Yeah.
that totally transforms who you are, and that many people, young people in particular, are really cultivating those images. I was talking to somebody today where they said they knew of a young woman who basically had two images that she would put on Instagram every day, but that those Instagrams were cultivated to allow her to seem to be a person that she was not.
Mm,
And she built
mm.
this whole persona. Like, I don't know if you've seen Inventing Anna.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
a
yes.
television
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
Inventing
Yeah.
Anna, right? And so a large part of Inventing Anna, or Emily in Paris, another
Sure.
television show,
Yeah.
a large portion of those shows are the use of Instagram and TikTok to create a brand, the brand being the
You.
person, right? The brand being the person. And as having been involved with advertising for all these many years, I know that what you see on an advert is not necessarily reality. And so that is having an impact.
That leads, well, I mean, we live this idyllic life on Instagram, and when I say we, I'm
The
thinking more
collective
of
we,
yeah,
the
the
collective.
collective we, and mostly they want to I want to show the best food and the best vacation, the best life, and the best all of that. So park that for just a second, because that makes me think that part of the metaverse, part of the entry into the metaverse is through avatars, and avatars are distinctly customizable. You could be whoever you want. You want to be a cowboy, you want to be a cowgirl, you want to be a whoever you want to be, you can be that. So what's your take on that?
Maybe before we even do that, let's define, if we can, what the metaverse is,
Sure.
right? Because I think there are different takes on what the metaverse could be. So folks that I've spoken to say, well, the metaverse already exists. I'll say, okay, like where? And they'll say, well, Second Life or Minecraft or
Mm-hmm.
World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
There are metaverses that are particular to a certain platform, right?
Yep.
Where you can buy and
Yep.
sell things and create avatars and interact with
Mm-hmm.
other people in that environment of,
Yeah.
Second Life, let's say. Um, I look at the metaverse as the ability to be able to be in cyberspace with anyone in the world that has the technology or the access to the technology in a virtual world, of an avatar created by you or others, and that you could meet with friends, go to a concert, go shopping, do all of those things, and to do it in an environment that is not closed-ended. So it's not Facebook, excuse me, Meta. It's not their environment. It's the ability to have all of these environments work together seamlessly. And that's my understanding of what the metaverse should be or
So
could be.
is it fair to say that your vision is more akin to Ready Player One?
Yeah, I think that Neil Stephenson's idea of what the metaverse
Yeah,
was to be is what got everybody excited. And if we were to look at sort of the definition of what everyone's hope is the metaverse to be, it's Neil's vision, right?
I
In
think
Ready
so.
Player One. Yeah.
Yeah, so for our listener, go look up Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. I fell in love with that book. All of his books I've fallen in love with. So now we're saying that metaverse is an immersive experience. In Ready Player One, you kind of get into a pod, and your whole body, you're no longer, you're on the earth, but you're interacting in this metaverse, in this alternate reality.
In a way, it's almost sort of like the premise that Jim Cameron has on Avatar,
Yes,
where you wind up getting into this part, you become
yes,
the Navi, and you're able to
yes.
interact in a virtual world. He does it in a real world on a distant planet, but in a virtual world where you can actually move things around, feel things through haptics,
Yeah.
be able to speak, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
So so I want to do that. I honestly really want to do that. um Knowing that, it feels like it's really far away, and as close as you are to technology, how far away do you think we are from that, and let's say an idealized where that's an okay thing?
Well, assuming people want to do it and act, because there's so many issues with it. It's sort of like we go back to an integral part of the metaverse, as I understand it, are virtual reality glasses. And we saw what happened with virtual reality. VR did not do what we all hoped it might do
Right,
10 years ago. I mean,
right.
all we have to do is look at the crash and burn of Roni Ababitz's Magic Leap to
Yep.
understand that virtual reality, or Oculus, where Facebook slash Meta makes a crazy investment in Palmer Luckey's company and winds up acquiring Oculus. And really the promise of virtual reality has not come to fruition. So the form factor of wearing a goggle on
Yep.
my face
Yeah.
doesn't excite me.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'm with you on that, and so I think our entry into that story, if you will, is now, right now, it's through goggles or some kind of thing that makes 40% of the people who wear it sick. I can't wear them because my eyesight, I need things, my focal plane's a little odd, so I'm out. I don't know how all of that's going to get fixed. Let's park that for a second, because there's a whole discussion about how is that all going to be built and who's going to run it. And I know Web3 is building the infrastructure for the financial systems and the currency, and how all of that's going to happen. Do you have a take on that part? Just for a second, we'll just take a little side trip into crypto and blockchain and all of that, which is clearly a big part of the metaverse.
I'll turn 71 this year. And for some reason, I keep screaming, and you'll hear me scream every once in a while, get off my lawn. Right? So, this whole concept of crypto, um, first of all, I don't fully grok it. And notice I use the word grok. I don't fully get it. It's based on nothing. And then people will say to me, well, so is the dollar based on nothing? Well, yes, and in part it is, but it's also based upon how its currency works interactively with other currencies around the world. But when Elon Musk can go out and say something and make a Twitter remark, and all of a sudden a coin jumps through the roof, um, that's shocking to me, right? So the whole concept of crypto befuddles me. Not to mention that many of the people that I talk to about crypto are in that 30 to 45-year-old
Right.
age group, of which I will define as a group of woo-woos. You know, they're very sort of, I eat good food and I exercise and I wear Lululemons and I take yoga and I'm a really good, and I won't get vaccinated and I don't believe in anything that the government says. And, you know, they're sort of anarchists. So, from my understanding, crypto uses a boatload of energy, right? So
That
here
sure
we are
does.
worrying about how the man's going to rip us off and how we're using blockchain, we get around banks, etc., which by the way is pretty cool. Um, that all of a sudden we're not really ecologically minded. We're using a ton of energy to mine these things that have no real value in the world.
So it feels as if that's a generational thing that you're talking about, right? Because we now have that we have first time we have 5 generations in the workplace,
Right.
and we have 5 generations that are we've got our digital natives, which are our grandchildren, right? Who don't like what's a book. I mean, they pick up a book and they're trying to swipe the pages
But the,
like this, trying to figure out how this
exactly.
thing works. So there's and much where you said that it's, I don't want to confuse ethereal and Ethereum, but that the whole financial thing is ethereal. Like it's
Material.
not, what's it based on? Yet isn't it also true that these virtual worlds we build are ethereal? They're a figment of some artist's imagination of what this cool place could be like. And if we lived in a metaverse where there's no gravity and there's no physical forces, do we have homes the way the homes are in this world? I mean, I think there's room for reinvention of all of these things.
Well, definitely, I get the reinvention of living in a virtual world, which again, I'm not sure that that all turns out very well. But nonetheless, as you said, I'd be excited to be in a metaverse and experience a metaverse as you've explained it, and so would I, right? And that's a real life experience. That's something that you get to experience, albeit virtually. You still experience it, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember the first time I put on VR glasses and somebody showed me a demo, and there was a waterfall
Mm,
in front of me, and they asked me to move my virtual hand through the
mm,
waterfall.
mm, mm.
I swear I felt the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just felt it. So there is a real world reaction to being in a virtual world.
Stay on visualization for a second. I'm
Uh,
a martial artist, and in getting ready for my first degree black belt test, our grandmaster had us go through the whole test in our mind. So visualize it, right? So be quiet, meditate, and just go through the whole test. Did that hundreds of times, and so that when I did it in real life, my body knew
the flow
everything
was
to do.
there.
It
The
was
flow
all
was there.
boom, right? And is it fair that it just hit me that an experience in the virtual world of like going to the fish market in Hong Kong, which I love to do, um, done virtually, could press all the same buttons in my brain, if you will, as going there in the real world, potentially.
I'll give you an example that there's a fellow, and I can't remember his last name because I'm old and I forget names now, but I think his first name is Skip, and he's a PhD, he works at USC, and he's done a lot of work in PTSD and VR. And so he did some work, for example, for those folks that were caught in the mass shooting down in Florida in that nightclub.
Yeah.
So people with PTSD, they place them in the same situation or a
Yeah.
similar situation, and over time you become somewhat desensitized to it. And it's real therapy and it works.
I believe that's in the ICT lab
It is.
at
That's correct.
USC. Yeah, that's some great work is being done there, and a lot of training is being done there. So there's a lot of applications. I want to touch quickly on a term that's new to me, but apparently was invented by NASA during the Apollo mission. It's called digital twin, and that's having a digital version of a thing in the real world. So the current application is if I'm going to
NFTs.
have a robotic assembly,
Uh-huh.
I have a robot doing something instead of tweaking the robot and then having it make a mistake. I can tweak a digital twin of the robot that works exactly like it, get everything working right, and then download that instruction set to the real robot, and they work
Sure.
in synchrony. And that's like a very big deal now. I'm curious, is the metaverse a digital twin of Earth?
No, I don't. I actually don't think it is. I think, it will be dependent upon who's building the metaverse. But I think there will be applications where it is a digital twin of the Earth. For example, in enterprise applications, architecture, medicine, um, things like that. Aviation, where things have to be learned, and we've seen that with simulators, right? Um, but the real jazz comes out of creating worlds that can't be seen in the real world, right? So I remember years ago, Jim Cameron used to be my partner. He would sign autographs, and his line in an autograph would be "Dream with your eyes wide open," which I
Mm,
always thought was a wonderful thought. And I think that's what the metaverse wants to be able for you to dream with your eyes wide open.
that's a great bookend.
Yeah.